There's a guy near me whistling. It's soothing and yet awkward. So I think I'm still in the Alphabet District. What street am I on? I think, Kearney Johnson? To those of you not from the area, I may just be making up names. No, seriously, I just helped my friend do a sound thing over on 23rd, the hub, and is that house abandoned? It's got a lot of greenery growing on it. I'm actually in the right area, or I'm pretty close to a site where it's one of these things like, is it a murder or isn't it? There's definitely an ethical question to be taken away from this story. And what I mean by that is, hey guys, how you doing? Steve the Amateur Historian here with another, wait, what street am I on? Okay, 22nd. Whatever. I just need to go north. Sorry, I got lost for a second. Steve the Amateur Historian, and this is an episode of Historic Murders of Portland. If I can remember where I'm supposed to go. Yeah. So there's a lot of hubbub going on, and the further north I go, the less and less that is actually going to be the case, because the further and further north you go, the more and more it kind of becomes industrial, and then ultimately Portland just ends. I'm not going quite that far north, but I'm trying to get up to Nikolai Street, which is like kind of one of the last crossing roads going east and west before Portland just kind of fades off. This one I'm going to do just a little bit differently. It's a story from quite a while ago, but it definitely deals in something that we are being inundated with all too often, especially right now. This is a story about what happens when you have people riddled with toxic masculinity. This story is all toxic masculinity. Now granted, that wasn't even a term back when this case happened. When I tell you the story, you're gonna realize, you know, a lot of this could have been avoided if these guys just would have tried not to be such guys. I'm still trying to get there. It's so quiet though over here. You know, you get these homes over here that are kind of remains of what used to be predominantly a residential neighborhood. I can only assume that Baldwin and Carlson, at least, well, I know Baldwin's family, I know they lived in this area. I'm wondering if Carlson, him and his family did as well. There's all these are like sun glares here, but this is like old broken up factory remains. It's just it's a bunch of crumble. But I'm on the right path. Ah, I finally made it. I knew Catfish Lou's right over here. I knew it was at the corner of 24th and Nikolai. So, I mean, I don't think it happened in the middle of the street, but the vicinity of this intersection is where the fight went down. And there were some 30 witnesses. There were family members of each guy. There were friends of each guy. I mean, there were an inordinate number of witnesses in this vicinity, right here where I'm standing now. And literally, they came together and they just fought it out. And the saddest thing is, Papa Baldwin was behind all of this. Sure, Carlson was, involved. He agreed to take it. He was also like an 18, 19-year-old guy, trying to be impressive in a day and age where that's what men were expected to do. They were expected to kick ass when called upon. And it's great. Papa Baldwin agrees to literally bet on this fight. And when Carlson produces $3, Papa Baldwin has to say, let's make it a $1 bet because that's all the old man had on him. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for this guy. I don't care. Sorry, it's really loud over here. I don't care, what the scenario was, but essentially what happens is these guys go at it and they fight for 20 minutes straight, just beating the living crap out of each other. I kid you not. And, one of the things that probably should be taken into account is the fact that Carlson got his ass beat just days earlier, and he's probably a little worse for wear. He's probably a little bit at a disadvantage in this fight. And everyone's just sitting there, and literally, while this was going on, family members from each side tried to go in and break it up, and other people there grabbed him and pushed him back and said, no, this fight is not ending till someone falls or gives up. So, again, 20 minutes of just beating on each other. And at one point, Baldwin hauls off and just sucks Carlson in the stomach as hard as possible. Carlson stumbles backwards and falls flat on his back. And Baldwin, the son of a bitch, won the fight. Carlson was down and out. So they took him to a house nearby this intersection, thinking, oh, he got the crap beat out of him, he'll wake up, he'll be fine. Well, Carlson wasn't fine. That punch he took to the stomach killed him, Harry Houdini style. And so this had the makings of a crazy court case, because technically Carlson took a punch right to the stomach, and that's what killed him. However, this was a fight with another guy that he had agreed to have, so there's got to be an understanding that whatever circumstances come about as a result of this fight, you're accepting the consequences. So, was it murder? That's an ethical question. Some people will say yes, some people will say no. As much as I hate this Baldwin guy, and I probably hate it more the fact that he technically won the fight, I don't know if I regard it as a murder, but that was the issue, was he was brought up, the idea was first-degree murder was what some people were calling for, because this guy actively, was involved in fighting with this guy, and it led to his death. But it was very hard. I don't think there was any way that this guy was going to get a first-degree murder beef based on something like this. And another big issue is Papa Baldwin. He was the guy that instigated all this. Would these two guys have fought again at some point? Possibly. But Papa Baldwin, a man of many more years than these young boys, he instigated this fight. So in essence, his actions, while granted the two young boys agreed to it, the agreement never would have been reached if it wasn't for Papa Baldwin. I'm sorry, I'm enjoying calling him Papa Baldwin too much. So yeah, what happened here in Nikolai and 24th wouldn't have happened. Absolutely not. Had Papa Baldwin not been there to say, hey, my son and his buddies beat the crap out of you, but I guarantee you one-on-one he'll beat the crap out of you again. And of course he had a distinct advantage. Carlson had his ass beat a couple, days earlier. So that was another issue, is the father, Baldwin, is he, I'm loving this effect on my face, is he guilty of murder? Because, that's what people thought. They thought he's even more guilty than his son, because they agreed to the terms of fighting each other, but the father was the one that brought around those terms, and a lot of people wanted him sent up for murder. And ultimately, I think they both got really small sentences. There was middle ground reached. Like, okay, this guy instigated these two young people, especially, you know, his son, who's obviously impressionable by his father. And then, you know, his actions led to this attack. So they both got sentences, but they were both fairly short sentences. I want to say the father got a 2-year sentence, and his son got like a 1-year sentence. So it was more of a manslaughter type situation for the big fight that happened right here. And, you know, hating this father for just using all that misguided testosterone and sexism and toxic masculinity and all the stuff that was just cycling through his young son. And the fight was literally, the attitude was this fight was for those two girls. Whoever won the fight got the girls, because after all, you know, these girls already hate Baldwin, but I guess if Baldwin wins the fight, all of a sudden they're just going to fall into his arms, like Cinderella running to her prince. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Or I guess, you know, whoever loses the fight has to back off. It's like, no, this is the real world, okay? This isn't ancient times where you sword duel for the love of your life, alright? I mean, I guess it was, you know, over 100 years ago when men still, I mean, they still think that way now, but even more so, it was a more generally accepted concept that men just pursue women and women's futures are determined by the men who approach them and want to become deeply, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. They want something deep with these ladies. So I can only assume that this didn't help Baldwin's case with the young women, and it certainly didn't help Carlson. So when all is said and done, just because these two girls decided to talk to these two guys, one ended up dead, one ended up in prison. But Papa Baldwin was paroled after, I think it was maybe less than a year, but it was because of ill health. He was essentially dying. And I found an article that said that he literally, in Slabtown neighborhood, which this is, I'm in the heart of Slabtown neighborhood, that he pretty much got released from prison and then just died in squalor in like a hostel, like a rundown halfway house hostel type place somewhere. And I was like, call me cold-blooded, but it's kind of apropos. And then I read in another newspaper article dated like a few days later that information was unfounded and that he actually died in, you know, all right circumstances with his family there by his side. But yeah, Papa Baldwin, a year after this brain-dead idea he had, he himself was dead, just like Carlson. This is a true story that happened right back there on Nikolai and 24th. And again, you know, I don't really know how you call it murder. Do you say it's murder on the part of the father? Do you say it's on murder on the part of Baldwin, who seems like he was going to grow up to become a murderer maybe someday anyway? You have a man who is beaten to death, but under these intriguing circumstances. I don't know. I wanted to put it in this series because it was such a just really sad story of just, you know, the control, like the way that men behave in general, but the control fathers often have on their sons to make them do stupid shit like this. It's really tragic. And I wanted to include that. And I did want to, you know, pose the question. I'm sure a lot of people will look at this and say, I don't think it's murder. Some people will say it is. And so I wanted to include it just for that, because it is an interesting ethical quandary. What exactly is this? Is it totally an accident? Is it totally a murder? Is it something in between? That's up for you guys to ponder and discuss. You can express your opinions in the comment section, as long as you keep polite about it. You come on and say, of course it's not a murder, dumbass, I'm going to delete your comment. So don't waste your time. Don't try me. So anyway, that's a sad, tragic story about how a guy named Carlson died out of the hubris of multiple men. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little trek way up northwest Portland, the fringe of northwest Portland, before it becomes more and more desolate. And as always, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And again, comment, but keep it nice, keep it light, keep it within the grounds of what this video is discussing. And hit my Patreon if you want to help me that way. Thank you in advance for that help. And, I gotta get the hell out of here. I don't know how I'm gonna get home now. Anyway, till next time, guys, this has been Steve the Amateur Historian with another episode of Historic Murders, or deaths of some sort, in this case, of Portland. Catch you later.